Okay, this is a quick short sound test. If you can hear me, please write so in the chat. I'm not sure about the delay. Usually it's, I don't know, half a minute, 10 seconds, I don't know. Significant, nevertheless. I got my streaming set up in the last minute running with the iPhone as the camera, actually pretty well. Welcome, there are already a few people in here. So, hello. I'm doing this in English because like 60% or at least 60% of my viewers, regular viewers, are English speaking, and I guess we are doing such simple stuff here that people will understand me if they had a little bit of English in school. So although this was a machine from the dosreloaded forum, a German retro computing forum, and one of the users said this thing is broken, the keyboard doesn't work correctly, and at first he had problems with the video output, I think, and also the keyboard is weirdly shifting around. Not sure what this is about. I haven't opened it yet. I have turned it on once, and we will do the same in a second. So I will let the stream settle in a bit. Let's see if a couple of more people will join or not. Let's see. Tonight's drink is a alcohol-free malt beer. It's called Tut Gut, which means it's good for you. Lovely, lovely brand. No. El Trash is here. Hi, El Trash. Yeah, anyway. So the streaming setup, I haven't used it in this particular setup for live streaming because it's the new iMac. The old one is almost 10 years old. So I got myself a new one after 10 years. And I didn't do any streams with multiple cameras and stuff. So the video capture device is there, so we can capture the output sound and video directly from this machine once we get it to work. We have a multimeter here for testing voltages and stuff if there needs to be. There's an oscilloscope up there, but I'm not sure if we will need it. Soldering iron is here if necessary, and the desoldering gun if we need to remove any of the ICs. We had the suspicion that one of the CIA chips might be bad because the owner, I think FR, that's you, I guess, reported that, as I said, the keyboard is wonky, and one of the CIA chips in this machine is handling the keyboard input. I don't have any C64-C, so this is the last version basically of the C64 that got published by Commodore. I do have two bread bin. Let me check. So I have one original bread bin and one white C64G bread bin, which has the same case but different colors. And as you can see, the keyboard is more or less the same from the size. Also on the back we have the same inputs. It's hard to see, but yeah, basically they didn't change much. The mainboard got redesigned a lot, higher integration, less chips, etc. Hi Chris Retro, welcome. And Adam Baranek is also saying hi. Hello Soul Sister from over in the living room. Glad that you're all here. So I have some experience with these older ones. This one here should have a little bit more modern ICs in there. For example, the more modern 8580 SID chip, while my C64s all had the 6581 SID chip and similar things. So Yeah, the badge here is, you can't see that I think because my face is in the way, but the badge here is coming off a little bit, but I leave that to FR to glue it back together. We are just going to do first of all a power on test basically, because it seemed to work, and we will see if it still works. So I have my video lead here, and that should fit neatly here at the back. I'm using S video out, I think, and we've got some power here, and I'm using one of the modern replacement power supplies by C64-PSU.com. There are people who say that their power supplies are a bit meh, but I think they are way better than the old ones that can go haywire. They can put more than 5 volts on the 5 volt rail, and you can fry your C64 when you use one of the old ones. I don't think I have one lying around here, otherwise I could show you. No, I think they're somewhere buried, or maybe in the basement. They can be good still, but they can go nuts because there's a linear voltage regulator inside that can short basically, and then you get something like 10 volts or something on the 5 volt rail, and that can destroy a lot of components inside. Okay, let's quickly switch to the capture device here, that we can see both things, and let's power the thing on. So yeah, there we have actually the problem that that FR told us about in the forum. That seems weird. Okay, I didn't have that on first power on. On first power on, the machine worked just fine. But we get stray presses here on the keyboard, it seems. The keyboard itself seems to be working. I'm just testing all the things here. This is looking good. Yeah, it mostly works, but you get this press play on tape. That is not ideal, I would say. That is a little bit weird. We will open it up in a second. Let's also fetch the dead test cartridge once. So there we are. So here I have, let's go back to the chat. I have here 2 cartridges which are pretty useful here. One is the dead test cartridge, and one is the floppy disk diagnostics and tests. This one here, the floppy diagnostics, we don't need today because we don't want to repair floppy drive. But the dead test is quite useful. There are better versions of this that require a harness. That means you put basically dummy devices on all the ports, and this will tell you if the ports are actually working. But this at least tests the RAM and everything, and you can see if the roughly see if the CIA is working. But I mean, we already know that it's working at least partially. So first of all, you get a black screen, and then we get the memory test. First it's testing the 0 page and all the other stuff, and down in the bottom right corner you see the different memory chips, and it will indicate if one of them is bad, for example, and it also tests the screen RAM. And the 2 clocks that you see at the very bottom right, which show 11 seconds AM and PM, are the 2 CIA chips. They are counting up in real time, and if one of them isn't counting, then you know that that CIA chip definitely is dead, because the CIA chip doesn't only handle input and output, but also the real-time clock, basically. Yeah, so screen RAM is okay. Color RAM is also. I mean, visually it looks all fine. We just have this stray press play on tape thing, which means that probably what is it? Is it shift run stop, or what is it that does the load from tape thing? I'm not a super big C64 buff. So yeah, that test already ran through once. It will probably, did it already test the SID chip? No, now it does. I'm gonna make it a bit more quiet. Yeah. Okay, the SID chip works. That is very nice, because the SID chip is always a bit finicky. It can die and things like that. So that looks pretty okay. I'm fine with that behavior. However, let's turn it on again. Now it doesn't do the load thing, at least not right away. Which is interesting. Yeah. I would say let's open up this thing and take a look inside. Maybe we can see something. We can measure the voltages. Maybe there's some component. Not sure if there are any regulators on these boards. It has obviously been opened before, because FR already took a peek at the device, and there wasn't much in the way of socketed chips, I think. And oh, this one doesn't have any screws. That's so cheap. And I can also turn off the capture device for a second, so that you can see what I'm doing here. So I guess you have to pry open very carefully the plastic tabs here. So the bread bins have like a ton of screws instead of plastic tabs. So if you have a look here at the bread bin, there's like screw holes everywhere, and it's very sturdy, which is good. Nevertheless, I actually also like the design of the C64-C, because it's similar to the Amiga, I would say. Chris Retro says, might be a keyboard connectivity issue. Yeah, that's shift run sub is a shortcut for load from tape, yes. Oh, look at that. Okay, so the keyboard is held in place also via clips, and I'm gonna remove red to the right, yes. Let's keep in mind red goes to the right for the power LED. And there we have the whole thing. Yeah, actually, I dislike the fact that the shift lock key is just resting on the metal coated paper shield. This could actually already short out the shift lock key at some point. That might already be our issue here, I think. Maybe. Perhaps. The keyboard looks to be like a regular C64 keyboard. Everything is actually pretty nice. There's only very mild yellowing. There's not much dirt. It's pretty clean. A very nice machine. Let's remove the keyboard altogether. And we can also check if we have the problem, or if the problem appears if there's nothing in here plugged in, like the keyboard. Slavek, hello from Poland. Hi, I hope you guys over there have a good time without Russian gas and stuff. Yeah, these times are weird. All right, here you can see already, this is the whole C64. The board, if I would open the bread bin, the board would be much bigger. It would go right down here where the screw holes are. Because you can also mount the bigger boards inside of this case. And this is basically a cost-reduced version with much higher integration. What we have here, what we can see, maybe a little trip, what we have here. This is the power section basically, There's the power switch and the power input, some inductor for I don't know what. I think this might be the voltage regulator, or maybe I don't have any clue actually. Some filtering capacitors. The fuse is of course important. This is the cartridge port. Then here you have one of the CIAs. There's the other one. This CIA is for the keyboard, and this CIA is for these inputs here, the user port and the cassette tape. Then you have the 8580, which should be the SID chip, I would guess, which is nice. It's socketed. This one here should be the clock chip, the 8701. They also break, but there are modern replacements which are a little bit bigger because they emulate this what do you call it, timing that it produces and stuff like that. The 8565, I would imagine, is probably the VIC-2 chip, I guess. Usually in the old breadbins it's all shielded in a can, but I think this is just placed here. This is the Super PLA. It basically does all the bus traffic control and stuff like that. For example, it interfaces with the CPU here, the 8500, and these are two 32 kilobyte RAM chips. This is the whole memory of the C64. Color RAM, says Ralf Schülke. Okay. Where's the color RAM? Is it in here? I don't know. Or in the Super PLA? I think it might be integrated in the Super PLA. I don't know. And I think these are the ROM chips, basic and kernel. And then there's, these look like logic chips, 74 series. Yeah, that's nothing special over there. This looks like a voltage regulator or something, I don't know, or a transistor. It says ECB, no, that's a transistor, I guess, emitter, collector, base. So this is the first time I actually see one of these in real life. It's very nice. This is the TV modulator, because back in the day most people didn't have the money to... Oh, the little chip. You're saying, this is probably the color RAM, right? The Sanyo, I guess. Yeah, this looks like an SRAM chip. LC3514A-15. That's probably the SRAM, 1 kilobyte color RAM, or 2 kilobyte, I don't know, something like that. The square next to the fuse is a bridge rectifier. Oh yeah, that makes sense. That's of course a bridge rectifier, yeah, because you've got the 9 volt AC, right? No, by the voltage from to DC. No, by the voltage, okay. This one over here. Okay, well, anyway, there's a lot of stuff. Ralf, the color RAM is socketed. You mean this one here? Okay. I don't... Ralf, you have to be more specific. Anywho, I would love to turn this on again and see if we get... I mean, it doesn't happen all the time. It will start up, of course, even without keyboard connected. And you can pull out half of the chips, but we won't do that because most of them are socketed. And the only one that we can pull and it will work is the SID chip. It won't work without the VIC-2. So it's on now. Let's see. Okay, now we are not getting any issues here. My guess is that it's just shorting out on this thing. That would be easy. Then the only question would be how to fix this thing in a better way. Interesting. Let's keep this running. Yeah, I think the VIC gets warm a little bit, of course. The SID slightly. Nothing majorly. I mean, the machine is fine. It actually looks pretty nice. It could do with some wiping down, but nothing too bad here. I think that's all good. I think, yeah, nothing's happening here. I personally would now try and reattach the keyboard. Let's do that. And see if that changes anything. We can also have a look at the voltages, but I suspect that they will be good because at least my power supply is good. But of course there could be something further down the line that is perhaps not that great. Okay. I mean, I see nothing wrong with the keyboard metrics at all. All the keys are recognized. Yeah, I think that when I press Shift Lock and run stop, that's the problem. I think something is shorting out. Let's actually try that. Let's just very gently. Wait, I'm pressing the space key, the 4 key. Let's very gently touch this thing. Ah yes, I touched very, very shortly the 2 contacts that are here on the back side with the shielding. And that's actually what causes the shift load to happen. That's pretty interesting. And that's actually not much that we need to repair then. That's a weird fault. I would put some Captain tape over that. I think I have some. That will be the bigger adventure now, to find the Captain tape. But maybe we can still have some fun with this, because what I also want to see is how we can attach the keyboard in a better way, because it slides around very annoyingly, and I think I know why. There are 2 plastic pieces. One is already broken half off and one is completely gone. I think these things were what held the keyboard in place. Well, I think C64-C cases are actually still available, like newly made FR. The question would be, do you want to repair this one here, which is always a nice idea, I think. Can we do something about this? Yeah, there's definitely, it used to be held in place here on this side by a plastic bracket thing, and that's just gone. It's totally gone. I don't want to glue it in place because that would be terrible, and there are no screw posts at all in this. So the keyboard, you can actually put both the keyboard and the mainboard in any C64 case. This is all interchangeable. One option for you would be to hunt down either a C64-C or a bread bin case, depending on your taste, and put everything in there. Or get a new one. Or you can, of course, try and remodel this or 3D print something. Maybe there's something on Thingiverse we could look and try to super glue it to this. You have to probably Dremel this away, these 2 things, and then place something in here that is 3D printed. That should be doable, but it's quite a bit of work, I think. Plastic being so brittle and everything. Yeah, anyway, let's find that Captain tape. It might be in here. Yes, it is. So this is a nice shiny roll of Captain tape, which is like heat resistant. You can use it while soldering. I think it's also insulating electrically. Here we are. And I will cover the exposed wires here of the shift lock key. Hi Retroiana, what's that? A calculator? Adam Baranek says, might be a good excuse to get one of those cool transparent cases. Yeah, as I said, there are very nice modern solutions. I'm not sure where you can buy them, but I've seen a lot of people building their C64s from scratch. And they are using modern cases. I think there was some tape on here. I mean, there's still some here for the wire harness. But there's sticky, messy goo here on the keyboard matrix. FR says, was looking at some offers for cases. They are talking about needing a keyboard mounting kit. What is that? I don't know. They should offer something. I'm not sure. I would Google that or ask. And I mean, you are on the DOS Reloaded forum. Ask there or in the forum 64, which is a very good forum for C64s. I've never built a C64 from scratch. Would be a nice project, but I already have enough C64s as it is. So let's put one over there as well. We can Google that also in a second once I've done this here. But I think, yeah, if you don't have a 3D printer and are willing to spend some hours repairing that case, I think this one is just broken. I mean, you can still use it at the moment. It's just that the keyboard is sliding back and forth, and that's a wee bit annoying, let's say. And is that hole on the underside of the keyboard normal for that model? The hole, you mean this here? Yeah, that's because the shift lock key is actually a key which you don't hold down, but it locks in place. On a PC keyboard, you just touch it and it goes away and it will toggle electronically. But this here is basically a mechanical switch. And this at the bottom here is the actual switch. So yeah, and they have exposed wires here, and all it does is basically to hold down the shift key for you all the time. And that's it. Yeah. More or less. Yeah, the keyboard looks exactly like the ones in my C64, so there's nothing fancy or different. I think they didn't change that much. I mean, there were probably different suppliers and stuff. Whatever they got cheapest and was most readily available. Yeah. So all we got is this problem here. Is there anything else that we want to do? I'm not sure it makes sense to measure all the voltages. The caps look fine. I wouldn't replace caps if the machine is working, I think. And these are not prone to fail and stuff. The machine is from 1989, it seems. The SID chip is at least from 1989. It might have been replaced because it's got a mark on there. And every other chip is from 1988, end of like week 42, 43. And this one here is late 89, the SID chip. So maybe it got replaced on warranty or something after a year. Could be. I don't know. But all the other chips are like week 43, 42. This one is week 35, CIAs. So yeah, it's one of the more young-ish C64s. Yeah, let's just quickly turn it on again and see if it still behaves like that after we put the Captain tape on. Yeah, I really dislike this cheapish case. L Trash is saying something. If I Google your solution, I find the same on Lemon 64. Turns out that the metallic coated cardboard shielding I used was making contact with two exposed legs on the underside of the left side of the keyboard, which had the effect of many keys being pressed. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Something like this. And this is feeling very brittle indeed. I mean, you can glue it in place with some hot glue, I think. which will hold for quite a while, and you can still kind of remove it. That would work. I mean, they're still very common, so I wouldn't beat you if you did that. Like, put some blob of hot glue here and there, but I'm not gonna do that. Also, don't have a hot glue gun right now. The power LED, we put that back. Red was to the right, if I remember correctly. But I think not much will happen if we don't put it in the wrong way. This cardboard shield is anyway pretty crappy. But even though sometimes I remove those, I still keep them. So let's close up this thing. God, this feels so cheap. Yeah, and it still slides. That's good. Let's put power in, and let's also put it through some tests. Let's also attach a floppy. All right, floppy is attached. We need power. Power is on the floor. And let's cross our fingers. Turn it on. Yay! No, press play on tape. And let's fire up some software from a nice yellow floppy disk. Yeah, should actually insert it. Okay. Okay, loading works. How I capture the screen, Ralph? I actually use a very cheap Goobay S-Video and Composite to HDMI converter and a very cheap USB 3 HDMI capture device, and that's it. The video quality is not super good, but like each device costs something like 30 euros or something, so that's almost as cheap as you can get. Also, let's turn down the SID volume a little bit. So this is a demo from last year's transmission, and let's see if that runs. Basically, anything will run. If you see any stuttering, that's actually not the C64, but my capture setup, because my machine is now turning up all its fans, because it has to do a lot of encoding. It's looking good. No crashes. I think the music is even written for the 8580 probably. Most of the newer demo scene parts are. So far, no problems. Yeah, I think the demo scene on the C64 is awesome because there are so many productions every year with such high quality. Yeah, that's the problem. New cases are not cheap, obviously, because it's like it's a niche product. But see it this way. I mean, either you will fix this with some hot glue or maybe 3D print something, or you buy a new case and make it your machine basically unique depending on what colors you choose. Congratulations to Manic on the working C64, yes, exactly. So some Captain Tape fixed it. It's the simple C64 fix way so far. Yeah, except that the keyboard is, yeah, thanks to the shoddy case. What you could also do, much simpler solution actually, that comes to my mind, is that someone could probably print, or maybe you can even use a piece of wood, glue it to the inside and then use wood screws to, I mean there are screw holes and mounting, there's a mounting bracket on the keyboard. You can build it yourself. You just need to measure how much millimeters you have between the mounting bracket and the case, and then use some very strong glue or something to attach little blocks here and here. That should work. I mean, you're not like doing massive typing sessions on this thing. It's just to avoid, I mean, it's fixed in this dimension up and down, but not in the horizontal dimension. So that would, I think, do it already. Maybe that would be a cheaper fix, and then you can keep the original case, which is always nice, I think. Because I also like the grey-brown color of the old red bins, for that matter. So yeah. A bit annoying is that it's not a more complex problem that we have to solve here. I was hoping that we could desolder the CIA and swap it around and then fix the machine by doing that. So I think this thing here Mainboard could have done himself basically, but sometimes it's more fun to do it the complicated way. So I will just ship it back to you and we'll do it. You can continue on improving the machine. I like this machine a lot. FR says, or Manmaker, I will get that new case and mounting kit, and maybe an additional bread bin from the side. Yeah, you can never have enough bread bins. I mean, I have the, back here are the big 20 bread bin and the C16 bread bin. I have like 4 different bread bins, 3 different computers basically. And that's, I think, one of the... I think the bread bin is beautiful in its ugliness. There's definitely more modern and more stylish looking computers, but it's very special. It's the look of the early 80s, basically. Hey Elias. Arne, do you know by any chance if the demo scene today is still coding mostly in 652 assembly or using cross-compilation with C64? Actually, Raistlin by Genesis Project started a blog on demo scene coding where he explains a lot of the effects of the demos he worked on. And he basically uses a lot of code generation. It's all 652 assembly, but he writes C++ programs on the PC, which generate all the assembly code. So building blocks he codes by hand in assembly, but then because it has to be very trickily interleaved, for example, every few cycles you have to handle something for the SID and then something for this, and then there's an interrupt. He doesn't code that by hand, but he designs the algorithm and computes how many cycles every step takes, and then he lets the computer do the hard work and reshuffle the assembly language so that it all fits inside of one screen retrace, basically. So the question is yes and no. I think there's there's probably no one using, well, hardly anyone using pure assembly language. Maybe a few people also were doing games, but I think these more complex demos, which need like interleaving of different techniques, you can almost not do that manually anymore. So you need code generators basically. And I wholeheartedly can recommend his blog. I need to see if I can find it. Right, let's look for his website. I know I posted it somewhere on Forum 64. Actually, we're at the end of the demo. But I might find the... Yeah, I have the link now. Actually, it's very simple. Let's post it in the chat. So it's simply C64demo.com. That's his website. And there he explains a ton of interesting things. A lot of the stuff I don't understand because I'm not a C64 coder. So yeah, that's that. What else can we do tonight? Because it's, yeah, I would have a couple of more minutes. Because I declare this one fixed except for a jiggling keyboard. And it was less stuff to do than expected. What else can we can load up some stuff on here, or you can ask me some questions. We can talk about coding. I don't code at all on the C64. I just use it for gaming and watching demos. Trash says, now we have the confirmation again. WD-40 or duct tape fix almost anything. Yeah, duct tape would have worked as well. I think I have black duct tape somewhere. I could have used that, but I think the Captain tape is more professional. And I bought this because I wanted to use it for soldering like 3 years ago, and I haven't used it once. So this is the first time I used this roll of Captain tape. It's even still in its original wrapping by Mauser.com. Let's see, when did I order this? It doesn't say here, but it says here it's polyamide tape by 3M, and it's from the US. That's what it says. Talk about sprites. What can I say about sprites? I don't know much about sprites on the C64. I only know that the C64 can do, I think, 8 sprites at most without tricks. You can do multiplexing. Basically, during the screen redraw, you can rewrite the VIC2 registers to put the sprite somewhere else on the screen and then have more than 8 sprites. And I think the sprites are monochrome, so for colored sprites, you need to also do some trickery, also some multiplexing. Elias says, I guess the sprite concept is vital to this machine's success. Yes, that, and the fact that you can that you have limited but still relatively powerful hardware scrolling and redefinable character sets, because most of the games don't use actual graphics but rather redefine character sets, like the Petsky characters and everything, because you can basically use that as a kind of texturing technique. And if you look at the NES or other consoles, they also used graphics tiles, which were a bit more powerful and a bit larger than just using characters. But I think that is very powerful. And that's something that, for example, the PC can't do or couldn't do back in the 80s. You could redefine character sets on the EGA and VGA graphics cards, but not in such a way that you could use it really well for displaying graphics and doing quick tile-based games and stuff like that. FR says, when I first did assembly coding on the C64 and tried to move the sprite horizontally, I was baffled to find that there are more X coordinates than 1 byte can hold, and you have thus toggled a bit. Oh, yeah, okay, makes sense. Yeah, you have similar things on the PC. I can only talk about the PC, and there are weird things. There's like scroll registers for the VGA card and registers which hold the memory addresses, and sometimes the addresses can be too large, and then you have like 2 or 3 extra ports where you have to do writes to toggle some bits. Yeah, I think that's all historic reasons, because probably was cheaper or it was backwards compatible. I'm not sure if the VIC-2 is in any way backward compatible to the VIC chip of the VIC-20 here behind me. I mean, they were designed by the same person, but I'm not sure if they designed it with backwards compatibility in mind. And I think the VIC-1 in the VIC-20 didn't have any sprites, so it's much harder to do some impressive games on there, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Definitely the C16 behind me, which came later, has more colors and everything, like more than 100 colors, and which I like very much. It's a very cool machine. But in the same way, it's a very limited machine because it wasn't meant for games. Doesn't have sprites again, and so of the 8-bit Commodore machines, only the C64 has this great capability of scrolling redefinable characters, relatively good colors. They're only 16, but they are pretty nice colors, arguably. And the sprite capability, most of all. And of course the sound. Best sound chip of the 8-bit Commodore machines. The Amiga, of course, was a completely different league, much more powerful. Also not designed by Commodore, but by the Amiga company, which they bought then. So yeah, I think the C64 is definitely very, very special and an excellent machine, actually, and probably explains why there are so many demo scene productions to this day, and every year they're coming out with new impressive stuff, and both in musical, graphical, and design ways, and what they do with the storytelling and everything. I'm always impressed, and I rather like to watch new C64 productions to see happening on limited hardware than some of the more polished high-end PC demos that you get nowadays, which often are that they are often very abstract and artsy, which makes sense because if you wanted to do something more concrete with good models, you need to spend huge amounts of time on modeling and content creation for PC demos, more like with a video game, a high-class video game. Whereas here you can basically just give a pixel artist, tell him, yeah, do 6 or 8 screens, and he does that in a couple of days or weeks. And then you have your composer who does like a couple of SID pieces, and then your coders who do some effects, and you can throw something very impressive in a limited amount of space. And I think that's very neat. And I always think that limitation of the hardware also fosters creativity, because you have to work around the limitations, and it's not like you can do whatever because it's like just you have gigabytes and stuff like that. Thank you, Elias, for your gratuitous donation. This will go towards, I think, probably the shipping back the parcel to FR or something. Yeah. And this time I also, one story, I unpacked this thing, and the packages back there, you can see it right now. He packaged it very well, but I unwrapped it and I saw, oh, there's a lot of bubble wrap. Unpacked the bubble wrap and took the C64 and got a zing. Basically static electricity discharge. Luckily, nothing broke, as we can see. But the wrapping, I think, or the unwrapping, produced static electricity. And I do have a bit of anti-static bubble wrap left. Maybe I will put it in that, or maybe we'll wrap it first in newspapers and then into the bubble wrap, because I think that might be more safe, and there would be an insulation layer from the C64. And FR, when you unpack it again, ground yourself first or something. so that all the charges can discharge and stuff like that. Because we don't want to destroy it. It's a very nice machine. It's also not getting super warm. I think the later chips also run a bit cooler, perhaps. I'm not sure. The C16 gets pretty hot, and the VIC-20 actually, because I've got one of the very early ones. I think mine is from 1982. And it still has this massive heatsink inside, so it just runs off 9 volts AC. It's got this massive heatsink, and
damit kann ich dir leider auf dem Mac nicht helfen.
This triggered Siri for some reason. Stupid wake-up word. So these machines run pretty hot, and I put heat sinks on the C16's chip, on the TED and on the CPU, and yeah, that's I think pretty necessary. On this, you can put heat sinks on them. There are these little, I use the little ones for the Raspberry Pis, but I think it's not super necessary. Elias asked, does a C64 1 board fit into a C64 2 case? Yes. You probably joined late. We opened up the case and there are screw holes all around, and you can swap around boards and keyboards as you like, because the only the size of the main board shrunk a little bit on the C64-2 or C64-C compared to the bread bin, and I think there are even bread bins with short boards, and maybe even C64-Cs with long boards. I think they always took whatever they had lying around and put that in the cases. This is basically this is totally 100% compatible down to the earliest bread bin. The only thing that you need to know is these short boards run off of different voltages. For some of the chips, you can't swap out the VIC-2 chip and the SID chip. They will burn up in a long board, because the long board has, I don't know, 12 volts or something on those sockets, whereas this one doesn't, only 5 volts or something. I'm not sure about the details, but it's definitely that the 8.5 chips can't be swapped out with their 6.5 counterparts. There might be some adapters, I don't know, some interposers or something, but I don't think it's worth the hassle probably. So that's something to keep in mind. The replacement SIDs, like the ARM SID or the Swin SID, you can just more or less plug in. Usually you can just plug them in because they only need 5 volts anyway. I've got 2 of the ARM SIDs. The gray bread bin here, this is still using the original 6581 SID chip, but the our main driver, the white C64-G, it's using an ARM SID, and I'm very happy with that because it can emulate either SID variant pretty good. There are only very few demos that sound weird, usually when they try to play back samples with a weird method. But instead of paying 50 or more euros for an original SID chip where you don't know how long it will last, I'd rather pay like 35 euros for this Czech ARM SID clone, and yeah, it's from like almost anyone, you won't listen to some piece of music and hear the difference between that and an original SID chip. Yeah, that being said, the SID chip in here seemed to be fine. The demo worked just beautifully, so no need to replace that, I think. All right. Anything else? Any more things? We can we try out something? Let me see if I have some. Maybe you want to see. I could show you the perhaps the C16 if you want. Midolf says, well, the 8580 SID chip in that C64-C sounded just great. Yeah, I think so too. The demo just sounded as it should be. Bam. I'm gonna turn this off because it seems to run just fine. I'm happy with this. Let's put this over here. And let's see. maybe we can have a short look before we finish the stream. And have a look at this beast, which is also a bread bin. They just recycled everything, basically. This is the Commodore 16, and it was meant to be a very cheap business machine. Actually, this one wasn't, but C64-C. You can see, can't even see it. That's of course super clever. Let's put it away here. Yeah, this is better. Anyway, the whole TED range fell more or less flat because they sold it for more money than was actually the target. I think $79 was the original target for the C116, and it was supposed to be more expensive. The Plus 4 is also in the same range. And also it came only with 16 kilobytes. People didn't want to use it as business machines because I think the PC was around at the time already. Also they used, because the C116 was very compact, they used different ports. For example, the cassette port and the joystick ports look different, but at least the video and the serial ports are the same, so I can just use the same floppy drive and the same monitors. But the joystick ports, for example, on the side here are different. I've actually gotten a special PCB here, which attaches to these mini DIN sockets. Yeah, and I can use regular Atari style joysticks now with this device, which is nice. So the chat says, okay, Elias asks, where did you get the C16? Actually off of eBay for pretty cheap, and it looks like new from the inside, from the outside, no dust. I think this was just lying around in a warehouse, and some people, probably in East Europe, because they dumped hundreds of thousands of these in Hungary and wherever there's a big Commodore C16 scene there, doing demos and games. And I guess it probably came from there. Midolf asks, how yellow is that floppy drive you used there? Is it one of those 1541-2 models? Yes, it's actually a 1541-2 that I can perhaps show you if I do something like this. Now it should be visible here. It's actually not very yellow. It's in pretty good condition. I have two of those. One here because I also use it to write floppy disks. Floppy disk images using my 486 PC, and I've got one in the living room where we do the actual gaming and stuff, things like that. So it's both are in pretty good shape, but I also got, if you have a look behind me, how do I have to point like this, like down here there are two 1541 ones, and they are a bit more nasty because they are older. They are from before 1985. They still work pretty fine. I had to repair the reset circuit on one of them, I think. No, it's still broken, I think. There's probably a capacitor broken, but they work fine. I had to replace the ROM on one of those, but they need some servicing. They are pretty noisy, which is often the case with these things. Yeah, they work, but they are noisy, so I use them rarely. I have them over there for the Big 20 because they are the closest fit I have, because I think the 1541-2 just doesn't fit with the Big 20. So let's get this thing here and turn it on, and it's running, but we don't see it because I didn't turn on the capture device. Here we are, and it's got a 64 kilobyte RAM expansion actually, because otherwise you can't play most of the games and demos. Midolf says, what kind of mechanism you got in that 1541-2? I think there are some different ones which were used in those drives. Yes, luckily I'm not even sure what's in the 1541-2. But luckily both are still working. I have one more drive, which is the 1541C, basically, I think it's called, which is basically the same as the 1541, huge and heavy, with the transformer inside. That's why it's so heavy, and a huge metal cage. But sadly, with the Mitsumi mechanism, which has this twisty mechanism here, whereas behind me those have the latching mechanism, where in the past I used to think those look cheap, this weird latch, this thing, but they're actually more durable. This thing here is dead. I mean, it works, the whole board works, but the read-write heads of these things, they burn out. Basically there's an open circuit on the coils of the read-write coils, and you can't repair that because it's tiny and it's in resin and stuff. So basically this is dead, unless some crazy people at some point, no, not Siri, go away, at some point we'll redo a new batch of read-write heads, but I think that will probably never happen in my lifetime, sadly, because I think there are a lot of these nice devices still around, and they are all the Mitsumi ones are almost all dead by now. There are a few people who are still running them, but there seem to be some issues with the production quality of Mitsumi back in the day. So the thing is here, I'm gonna fetch some disk, either with the demo or with the game, and we can see what the C16 can do. So let's see. Okay. Yeah, I have a bunch of disks here. I'm not sure if they will all run, because I remember that one or two didn't want to run due to some issues I had with writing the disks. But let's just try. You can actually load like this, but you can also press the F keys. No, this is graphic. What was it? Yeah, F3 is directory. Very good. Okay, this is the demo rocket science. I'm not sure if that loads, but we'll try and see if it works. Because I had some problems with the with writing some of the images, so maybe this won't work. But I know that Arkanoid, I have an Arkanoid version that some demo coders did, a port that didn't exist back in the day. Otherwise we will have a look at that. So this is ready. Let's try to run it. Cross the fingers. Wow, it's actually looking okay. So the basic palette of the C16 is more or less like the VIC-2, but you've got, I think, 8 additional shades going to less and less saturation, more or less. And also, I think, maybe darker colors. So it's basically a very pastel do you call it like that? In German you would call it pastel, very low saturation palette. But I like it, it's got a very unique style. And remember, there are no sprites on this machine, none at all. So everything has to be done via character set manipulation trickery and stuff like that. I'm not even sure you can set pixels easily. I have very little understanding of how the tab chip works. What I can definitely say is that the sound output is muted relative to the C64. I've already cranked up in OBS. I can probably turn up the mixer. No, actually I can't, because it's on the wrong input. Well, never mind. Yeah, Bauknecht is a demo group that I think I only know from the Amiga, but they seem to do a few C16 demos actually. Elias says there's an Easter egg on the C16. Enter sys52650. Yeah, we can do that after the reboot in a minute or so. I know that the +4 also has a Easter egg, similar Easter egg I think. So this is probably a different one, because the +4 comes with slightly different ROMs. There's some applications built in. 4 applications, that's why it's +4. I don't own a +4. I would love to, just for seeing it basically have a C116 or +4, because the design is pretty interesting and pretty unique. There's supposed to be 2 disk sides, but I'm wondering when the floppy change happens. And I see that the stream is lagging definitely half a minute behind or so. Oh, this is looking cool. When I was little, I used to dislike the C64 palette. Oh, little, well, like my teenage years, let's say, because I always thought it looked so weird. But to be honest, like IBM EGA palette or CGA palette, that's weird. The C64 actually has pretty good colors, I think, for reproducing some semblance of natural colors. While the EGA and CGA are like pure saturated colors, which are very hard. Like if you look at the Sierra adventure titles where all the people have like orange skin and stuff like that. So I think the C16 and the C64 have actually pretty nice, slightly muted colors. I like that. This is one long demo, I must say. I think I've watched it maybe once, but that was like last year or something. And there's still not the flip disk. maybe we'll cut it short. We can have a vote if we want to cut it short or not. Bam! There's the vote. You can vote now if you want to watch this. Or if you want to skip ahead and see some other thing. Leah says, I never saw a C16 in action. The video modes are far beyond what I expected. Yeah, it's actually better. I'm wondering if this thing now wants me to flip the disk. I think so. Probably, because nothing's happening. I'm gonna flip the disk and see what's happening. And there it crashed. Maybe it wasn't supposed. Okay, I broke it. Although you voted no, I did cut it short. Yeah. Maybe one more thing to show that games are possible. There are no sprites. Please do remember that. Actually, yeah, let's first load up this. This is Arkanoid, which you probably know. It's a breakout clone. It was ported to a ton of different platforms back in the day, but never to the C16 or +4. So some. Oh wow. Okay, I think the drive crashed. So let's redo this. Oh! I put it in the wrong way. It's actually an empty disk. This one here as well. Oh no, I think this disk is dead. Something is wrong. Maybe we have something to repair after all. Maybe I killed the disk drive. I hope not. That would be very unfortunate. Let's try a different floppy. I hope that just the... Okay, yeah, this works. We might need some kind of joystick. I only have my quick shot here, which many people like this joystick. I don't like it very much. But still, it's the only one we got right now. But we can load Alpha Ray, which is a shoot 'em up. Heavy on sprites. And as you know, the C16 hasn't got any sprites, so that's what making it very interesting indeed. Competition Pro, yeah, that's what it's called, yeah. I'm not using the Competition Pro, usually I use an arcade joystick. There are hotkeys, shortcuts on the C64 for delisting and such. I only know that from the final cartridge. Yes, exactly, and it's built in. The F keys, actually, and there's even a help key. So yeah, this is a game by some of the demo sceners, and it's called... what is it called? I just told you. Well. Anyway, imagine this is all without any sprites. So the sprites are basically all done in software, more or less. Alpha Ray, yeah, that was me. And we can just try and... we'll try Apprentice. Let's play on Apprentice. So you have a story and stuff, and yeah, screw the story. story is actually pretty involved. Okay, we can steer with the joystick, and we can fire with the fire button. Surprise. And the shift or the space key. Yeah. I think we can manage. Okay, it's actually loading in the background while the level description is coming here on screen. Yeah. So, yes. We need. Yeah. All without sprites, remember? And I'm already dead. I think this game is not fully finished because I think there's no scoring or lives. I think I can just continue as I want. And the collision detection is brutal because I think it's based on single character cells basically. I can move rather smoothly, at least it looks smoothly, but you have to be very careful to avoid any object here. But I think for something that doesn't have any sprites, it looks actually pretty amazing. But you can see that it has to do a lot of things here. The scrolling is pretty smooth. The sprites, not so much. But I think it's actually pretty impressive. I think a PC from that era wouldn't have handled this kind of action and this amount of sprites. And colors, for that matter. So, yeah, I think it's a proof of concept that shoot 'em ups can work on the C16+4. I think it's probably better suited to, maybe you can do jump runs better. There's, I think on the backside I have a different game called Majesty of Sprites. I think by the same programmers, maybe, or a different team. But the people of Majesty of Sprites definitely did another game, or are doing currently another game called Lycia, which is a Zelda-like JRPG, more or less. There's a demo out, which I've played a little bit. The scrolling is very smooth. The sprites are not that smooth. I think there's a limitation in the emulation how they do the sprites. Okay, this, I think we saw what it can do. Let's have a quick look at the backside, which should be Majesty of Sprites, a jump and run game. Yeah, it looks good. So let's do that. Oh, that's a lot of files. As you can see, it's also using a newer basic than C64. It has dedicated disk commands like the deload and the directory. I didn't look at the boot up screen, but it's not basic version 2, it's something newer. Elias says it looks like Omega Force 1 on the C64, which I don't know. Could be. I mean, there like a ton of shoot 'em ups that are similar. Okay, so yeah, Majesty of Sprites, you can also buy it. I think there was a boxed, big box version of that as well. Things like that. It's all loading from floppy, obviously, so it's taking a little bit of time. But most of the modern games, so like these things, they usually already have some kind of IRQ or fast loading routines in there, which make, yeah, you can see you don't have to wait like 5 minutes. And this one is a pretty cute jump run game. I think you're playing a little witch that has to collect fairies or something, if I remember correctly. Ah, yeah, it was this actually also by Bauknecht, so they not only do demos, but also a couple of games. We also got a story here, which we also skip. There are 2 chapters which are different from the gameplay. It's not like different levels, but almost entirely different games, if I remember correctly. Different goals that you have to do. Forest of Dreams, collect 3 hearts. Okay, yeah, I think the second chapter you have to collect fairies that are somewhere in the forest, and here we have to collect hearts. Notice the nice parallax scrolling, which of course again is something that the C16 usually can't do. Are you ready for fun? Yes, I am. And again, we don't have sprites, so everything here is emulated. What's a little bit weird is in this game you have no scrolling. At least in this part of the game. But instead you have these... oh, how do I get up here? I have to go back, probably. Go up here. And then jump like this, yes. So this is actually making me a bit nauseous. Almost. I'm not sure I'm... Ah, you can jump on enemies. Yeah, that's nice. We've got 1 heart. So yeah, it's nice. But we can try and... Am I invincible now or something? Probably. Yeah, it's a fun little game. We can try and... how do I get out of this? I can probably just die. And I think the second chapter actually has scrolling, if I remember correctly. Let's quickly lose all our lives. And then hopefully we'll get back to the selection screen. Yeah, something's loading. Game over, yeah, that's what I wanted. Midolf asked, do you gotten C128 or C128T? Sadly no, and they have become very expensive, so all the machines I got pretty cheap. For the C64s I usually paid 30 euros. Of course I invest money to repair them and stuff, but I hardly ever buy anything which is very expensive. So no C128 sadly. Let's see if we can fire up the second chapter, and I think that uses scrolling. I think they have basically 2 different game engines inside of one game, which is pretty interesting. The drive is making noises. Okay, there we are. Okay, let's try to load the second chapter. And there, as I said, there are even more games on the C16. So by now it has become actually a pretty nice gaming machine. And the demos are also nice, but the demos are much more rare than on the C64. Of course, the C64 also has many more modern games. Yeah, we are supposed to collect fairies. Yeah, as you can see, now we have scrolling. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of this scrolling either, because it's pretty jerky, but considering that the hardware doesn't do sprites or scrolling very well, it's actually still pretty impressive. Look at that. And look up there, this weird little white sprite is actually a fairy that we are supposed to catch. And we can go over there. And up in the left corner there was a 1 and a fairy now. And then you can go through the levels, and we've got some nice music. And people are shooting at us. Yeah, it's a nice little game. Looking like VGA mode 13. Yeah, a little bit of course, because the resolution is the same, 320 by 200. And you've got a similar amount of colors, and you probably could emulate the color palette of the C16 on the VGA card. because it got way more colors to choose from. Yeah, but still, I think for a machine that wasn't supposed to be a gaming machine, it's actually pretty capable. The sound chip is of course much worse than the SID chip. It only got 2 voices and I think only square waves. So you're much more limited actually. But considering everything, I think it's pretty neat. Yeah, I think that's probably what I wanted to show you today. We successfully repaired Mainmaker's C64-C, which didn't have a real problem except that some tape fell off, it seems, and we put in some new tape, and that the supports on the case are broken. But as he said, he'll probably invest money into a shiny new case, which is a good idea. I hope you pick a nice color and you make this your special, very unique C64. And we didn't have to solder anything. Next time we might be able to do some more stuff in that area, let's say. But so far, I thank you all for watching. Was a very nice and fun stream. I will try and pack this thing up as good as I can and ship it back to you, Mainmaker, in hopefully as little time as possible, so you can play again with the C64. Definitely still, you mentioned that you still have the original power supply. It seems to be good for now, but I would invest either in the money in a C64 saver, which is a device that blocks the overvoltage once it happens, or because it's almost the same price, I personally would rather buy one of the modern power supplies. I have the one with power for both the floppy and the main machine, which means you only have one power brick under the desk, but that's up to you. Definitely replace that thing or use a C64 saver, but those are not cheap either. I think you can get them for 10-15 euros as a soldering kit on eBay, but that's already almost half the price of a new power supply, so yeah, depends. Yeah, yeah. Thank you everybody for joining, and yeah, there wasn't that much maintenance today, sadly, or luckily, depends on how you see it. But that's it for today. I'm gonna end the stream now, and I hope to see you in the next Lötstream or in one of the videos. And I had a lot of fun, and I hope you had also quite a bit of fun on a Thursday evening. So long, and yeah, have a good time. Bye!